Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Happy to be streaming with you on this Thursday. I'm Adam Weiner, joined once again by Ian McMillan of betting fame. Oh, why my brain absolutely short-circuited of betting fame. What are we talking about? But I'm pleased to have him as a guest host once again. I've maybe never started an episode worse, and that's my fault. Ian, thank you so much for joining me again from your current confines at our very crowded and tough to navigate office.
Yeah, we're going to be fighting through it today, Adam. As you mentioned, I'm reporting live from the fan-sided office. It is pure chaos in here today. I'm in a side office I managed to find with nothing but computers and boxes. Will I get through this show without someone coming in here trying to kick me out of this office? I don't know. That's up for debate. Place your bets. But we're going to try to get through it here. I'm excited. Let's see what chaos this show will bring.
Place your bets. Of course, you are of betting fame, so that's where your focus lies. And if you are a new bettor, obviously a burner. Obviously a burner joined us for the Yanks Go Yard podcast, and so he heard the unprofessional side where I just take 30 minutes to run through futile stats. The Yankees are 30th in X. The Yankees are 2-10 on the road extra innings games. Why? Like, he just hears me and Thomas Carinante screaming. And if that's something you want to hear, join us on the Yanks Go Yard podcast. But for now, for today, if you'd like to bet, the place is DraftKings. It's on the screen. If you're a new DraftKings user, we rotate these in and out because we are shaking hands with all of the big old conglomerates that love their betting. If you're a new user in a legal betting state, DraftKings is your spot today. They've upgraded their sign-up offer for you, baseball fans. Yes, even you baseball fans in Oakland, for a limited time. If you're a new user, you can receive $200 in bonus bets by following just 3 steps. Create an account, deposit, then wager $5 or more on any sport. Whether that wager, your very first, wins or loses, you will still receive the $200 in bonus bets. All you have to do is use the code BASEBALLINSIDER when you sign up. Easy to remember code. Name of the podcast without an S. No weird Frankenstein code. We're not chopping and screwing different words together. It's just Baseball Insider, as if there were one insider. The best part is that code not only gets you the bonus, but it also supports the podcast. If you are considering signing up for DraftKings, definitely use that code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bets. This offer is available for new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for full terms of the offer. And Ian, today we are going to be giving those bettors a little mid-season update on where the awards horse race currently stands.
Yeah, today it's kind of a mix between the normal Baseball Insider show and the betting baseball show that it's usually myself and Peter Dewey. So a little mix of that today. We're going to talk about some awards: Cy Young, MVP, Rookie of the Year. And find out where the odds makers have the race, because that's really, if you want to find out who's going to win MVP or who the favorite is, betting odds is always the best way to do it because that's where the true odds lie. So instead of trying to guess where the MVP race is, just look at the betting odds, and that's what we're going to do today.
And this might be a tough one for some because there aren't always bargains to be found. Some of these races are fairly, like you said, well determined. You check the stat sheet, check the betting odds. Those two things are shaking each other's hands. It's probably pretty clear where this is going to end up. So Rookie of the Year in the National League. We talked about the Reds a couple episodes ago as creating this sort of underutilized group of under-discussed players who may all band together to eventually finish second in the Rookie of the Year race, because Corbin Carroll in the National League just feels like a wagon to me right now.
Yeah, and I will say Justin's message there just got brought up. If that's who you think is the favorite, that's who you think should win all of those awards, Justin, then I would recommend placing some bets because you're going to find some value there, because most of those players you listed are not the current betting favorites. Carroll certainly is, though. Minus 350 right now. He is, of all the awards, he is the biggest favorite by far. Nobody else is minus odds to win anything. Minus 350, and then it's De La Cruz 7-1 plus 700, and then Bobby Miller at 25-1, and that's pretty much the only potential contenders. But it's Carroll, and even though he's minus 350, that doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that there's no value, because I think right now, if you're betting on him, you're basically just betting on him to stay healthy, because as long as he stays healthy, unless his numbers completely fall off a cliff. Like, even if there's a little bit of regression from him, he's still going to win Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. So basically, a bet on him is a bet on him to stay healthy for the rest of the season, or at least not miss any significant time. And even though it's minus 350, now I'll kind of squeeze any juice out of it. You're going to have to place a bigger bet than normal, but still, even though it's minus 350, I think there is some value there. If I were to set the odds, I'd put it more like minus 500. So, yeah, if you're willing to place a bigger bet or just place a normal size bet and just know you're not going to win a whole lot, I think there's still some value there on Carroll at minus 350. But of all the awards we're going to talk about, he is certainly the biggest overwhelming favorite.
American League is interesting too, because I think opening the season, it was probably neck and neck between Gunnar Henderson and Masataka Yoshida. Yoshida has delivered on those early projections. He has been fantastic, but the narrative plays a part here. All Anthony Volpe had to do was be okay, and he'd probably be in the top three. Unfortunately, he has not been okay, and therefore is not mentioned here. Being the Yankee shortstop carries some weight. Rough stuff for me. But Yoshida has been fantastic. Adley Rutschman finished second last year. He got over that at-bat threshold. He was unfortunately massacred in the voting by Julio Rodriguez. So this year it's still down to Gunnar and Yoshida, but because the Texas Rangers are an offense unlike any we've seen in a long time, Josh Young is the current favorite.
He is. I did place a bet on this actually at the start of the year, and I did bet on Yoshida. And he was a favorite there for a while. But Josh Jung, is it Jung? Do you pronounce the J?
You know what? Tricks of the trade. I just tried to sort of eat the word because I'm not positive if you go hard J or soft one. So I like
to just lean into my incompetence and just admit that I don't know how to pronounce the large majority of names. So it could be Jung, it could be Young. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of Rangers games, but yeah, but it's close. And another little bit of a dark horse. There's kind of, and in terms of the betting odds, there's four guys and then everyone else. So it's Jung if we're going to go with that. Could be Young. Yoshida, Gunnar Henderson, and then Hunter Brown coming in at 6-1 too. So he's alive in this AL Rookie of the Year, but Young is the favorite. Young is the favorite plus 260, and then Hunter Brown fourth at plus 600. So pretty small gap between the top four guys, and then there's a pretty large gap between before anyone else. So it's going to be one of those four guys. Choose one of the four and then place a bet, because it could be any at this point. Could be any of those four guys.
Just don't put your money on Jung if you meant to bet on Josh Young. That's my advice.
Justin says pronounced like Young. So it is Young.
I believe that is correct, but I wasn't confident enough in my own pronunciation to say like, not so fast. I know the answer. Yeah, it's an odd one. And again, just, I obviously watch a lot of baseball, but they don't tune into the Rangers when they're saying the name so much.
My issue is I generally watch sports on mute, so that's why I can never know the pronunciation of names. I usually like to have, especially baseball, I like to have it on, and then I listen to a podcast or some music while I'm watching it. So that's a big reason why I mispronounce everyone's name, because I'm usually watching games on mute.
Yeah, I like to be nice to my wife too. So on occasion, I'll be like, you don't have to hear tonight. Rangers, Angels. You don't have to hear that audio.
Right.
Ruiz is probably right behind that group, you'd think, though, of the A's, right? Esteury, Ruiz, he's probably fifth. He's probably likely to finish fifth.
Yes, I believe he is. We are in New York, so we can't actually bet on awards, personal awards in New York. So for me to find these odds, I actually had to do a little bit of a workaround, and outside of the ones that I had written down on my sheet, I actually don't have access to the full list. So I think he is fifth. I only wrote down the top four though, because I cut it off after there's a big gap. So if he is fifth, there's a gap.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Cy Young, because preseason I had Logan Webb, and his odds are not terrible right now. And as the Giants continue to be around 500 and are flirting with being more interesting, I remain kind of interested in that pick, but it feels like in the American League, you've got a lot of names to choose through. Framber Valdez has the heat right now. So does Nathan Eovaldi. Like with Young, being on the Rangers helps. Being on the team that is opening eyes this year helps. But what are we currently looking at in both the AL and NL Cy Young races?
Both very, very close. NL, I think preseason, I think it was Max Fried I took. So he's obviously out of contention at this point. But NL, you got Zach Gallen coming in as the favorite, pretty sizable favorite too at 2-1, which was a little bit surprising to me. But he does lead the National League in FIP, I noticed. Clayton Kershaw plus 550, Spencer Strider 7-1 right now. I think if I were to place a bet right now, it would probably be on Spencer Strider. He's been lights out for the majority of the season. Zach Wheeler 8-1, Mitch Keller 9-1, and then your guy Logan Webb bringing up the rear of the top guys there at 10-1. So still a pretty tight race for the most part. 6 guys really in contention here, but Zach Gallen plus 200 is the betting favorite as of right now.
Logan Webb's season turned around a little bit when the Giants went to face the Padres in Mexico City, and on the way back said 3/4 of our team has, quote, the shits. And since then, the Giants look a lot better, and my pick for the odds looks a little better as well. But yeah, Zach Gallen probably is the overwhelming favorite at that point, unless he too develops the shits somewhere down the line. In the MVP race, last year, a lot of people got very angry when Aaron Judge beat Shohei Ohtani. This year, I do not think that we will have the same problem. Shohei Ohtani might be the clearest. This might be his clearest case yet to just go ahead and put another trophy in his case.
Yeah, I don't think we went over AL Cy Young. So let me rip through those really quick, and then we can talk MVP, because AL Cy Young is kind of interesting as well. McClanahan, who was my preseason pick, favorite plus 275, Garrett Cole 5-1, Valdez 5-1, Gausman 8-1, and then Castillo, Eovaldi 13-1, Ohtani 14-1. So actually the AL Cy Young race, pretty interesting as well. Speaking of Ohtani, though, AL MVP, I think this might be the best bet to place on the board right now of all the different awards you can place. Seems like Ohtani is an absolute layup to win MVP with Judge being out, but Ohtani only plus 175, so still only given like a 45-ish % chance to win an MVP, which is kind of crazy to me because I don't really know who else can win it in the American League. Judge plus 535, Trout 10-1, Vladimir Guerrero 18-1. I don't know if any of those guys can catch Ohtani. So I think the best bet on the board right now is Ohtani plus 175. I see Justin mentioned Marcus Semien already has 2 top 3 AL MVP finishes. I'm not sure why he's not further up the odds list, unless I had a bad list that I was looking at. But he certainly should be. I know one of those top 3 AL MVP finishes was with my Toronto Blue Jays. I wish we still had him. He'd be a nice addition on that Jays team right now. But yeah, it looks like right now Ohtani is the favorite, but some pretty decent value still on him. I'm going to see if I can refine this AL MVP list here. Because yeah, there's some names I'm surprised aren't further up the odds list.
Yeah, Wander, Yandy Diaz. Like, I guess the argument against Ohtani is that who's the story of this regular season so far? It's very clearly the Tampa Bay Rays, who are having a comparable start to the season like the one that the 2022 Yankees had. The Yankees eventually fell off. It didn't hurt Judge because he hit 62 home runs. So people can do semantics, whatever they want. Judge won the MVP last year because he did hit 62 home runs. It was undeniable. It was like Miguel Cabrera getting the Triple Crown, and everybody saying Mike Trout's numbers are better, both by metrics and by counting stats, and everybody just kind of went, Miguel Cabrera had the Triple Crown, though. So, like, I think this year we kind of have to give it to Miguel Cabrera. Last year, that was Judge over Ohtani. This year, Ohtani is doing exactly what he did last year. So was Judge before he got hurt, but I don't think you could possibly take it away from him 2 years in a row unless you feel like going, it's got to be the Rays, right? It just has to be the Rays. In that case, they have plenty of players to choose from as well.
Yeah, Ohtani kind of has that advantage kind of on the rest of the American League, right? Because of the fact that he's a pitcher and a hitter, it's going to give him a leg up on just about anyone if we're talking about most valuable player to his team. So like you said, unless someone does what Judge did last year and just have an absolutely insane season, then it's going to be Ohtani the large majority of the time. So Yeah, I'm looking at Franco still 26-1 to win MVP. Simeon 40-1 to win MVP. So I mean, maybe there's some value in those guys pretty far down the odds list at those prices. But like I said, I just the leg up Ohtani has on everyone being a pitcher and a batter. Someone has to do something outstanding, a record-breaking season, I think, to really steal it from Ohtani's hand. Or if it just gets to the point where eventually a couple years down the road, there's voter fatigue and we're just tired of giving Ohtani MVP, then maybe other guys get back in the mix. But this year, it seems to me like it's going to be Ohtani.
Yeah, I try not to talk Ohtani MVP anymore, especially not Ohtani versus Judge, because last year when I tried to do it, I was in the mentions of some to be unnamed baseball writer, and I made some joke about how we might as well just call it the Ohtani Award because he is going to be inherently more valuable than anybody else. And that person was like, "What are you doing here? Like, why are you in my mentions?" And it was one of the craziest reactions I've ever seen to a very standard comment. And then I checked back later, and they went on a tweet thread that was like 5 deep about like, life as a public figure is difficult because you're allowed to people have conversations with you and you say, who are these people? And it was just like, it went very, very deep. And I was like, I think it's time to maybe not talk about this in public for a long time.
Yeah, that's some people got to recognize and they need to take a little break from Twitter.
It was deeply strange. It was like a friend of mine replied, so I replied to him, and then this person was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, this can't be your first time experiencing a reply, right?" So, I don't know.
Love the internet.
It was a bad time. It was one of those instances where I blocked this person because I was like, you know what? I just don't want to ever see it again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that to you, and I'm out.
I love it.
What about in the National League where Shohei Ohtani might be playing next year, as our commenters have astutely acknowledged? He may, in fact, repeat as MVP for the Angels and Dodgers, Angels and Padres. But this year, we've got a pretty clear favorite in the National League as well.
Yeah, which I'm surprised because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but statistically, I don't think this person's that far ahead of a couple of other names. But Acuna, minus 140. I think I said earlier the Carroll was the only minus money favorite for the awards. I lied because Ronald Acuna Jr. minus 140. Then you got Mookie Betts plus 900, Juan Soto 10-1, and Freddie Freeman 11-1. Freddie Freeman, unless I'm mistaken here, has better odds stats than Acuna, or if not better, like basically the same. Why is Ronald Acuna Jr. such a big favorite?
They are not only like comparable stats, they're nearly identical. Home runs, Acuna has 2 more. RBI, they're tied. OPS, Acuna is 0.03 higher, 985 to 982. Slugging, 580 to 572. OBP Freeman at 410. Acuna at 405. The 405, my favorite highway in Los Angeles. But 29 stolen bags for Acuna to 9 for Freeman. Obviously, Freeman's never going to steal bases. Freeman has 3 more doubles. It's a remarkably similar profile.
Yeah, I'm looking at some odds from the other side. At least they give Freddie Freeman a little bit more respect. Another side is Freddie Freeman at 5-1, but still Acuna Jr. minus 130. The disrespect for my fellow Canadian Freddie Freeman is unbelievable.
Imagine those 2 guys on the same team. Could have been interesting.
Crazy. I can't imagine there was any chance of that ever happening, though.
No, if we're we're talking crazy talk, these are things that would never occur. But if they did, they would be interesting. And speaking of crazy talk, people went to an Oakland A's game this week. They showed up. They attended the game using their money to purchase tickets. The reverse boycott was a huge success, except for the fact that it's not going to move the needle of the Oakland A's staying in Oakland. Rob Manfred was a real prick about it earlier today. I got to pull up those quotes before we move on too, because he belittled the reverse boycott. He basically said, June Lee of ESPN got this quote. Manfred said, "I mean, it was great. It is great to see what is this year almost an average Major League Baseball crowd in the facility for one night. That's a great thing." And yes, Rob, but of course they did not show up on the non-reverse boycott nights because you and John Fisher and the cabal have all managed to shake hands and veto plans and figure out a way to get them to Las Vegas. And that's fine and dandy. To me, the people doing the reverse boycott knew they weren't going to win baseball back in Oakland by the end of the night. This wasn't Angels in the outfield. They weren't, looking at a big rich man on the field with a big check who was going to rip it up after the ninth inning and go, "You win, you people win, baseball stays." Like, they knew that wasn't going to happen. That said, this was much better than an actual boycott. To get to have that one special night, at the very least, you've accomplished something other than just saying we're leaving and we're never coming back and we're burying it.
Yeah, Rob Manfred is an interesting figure, isn't he? I also saw some comments that he made today, basically blaming the A's potentially moving on the fans, saying they didn't support them enough and the city's not supporting them enough and they weren't willing to pay for the state. He's the worst of all the commissioners. And I don't think there's a single commissioner that I like out there in North American professional sport. He's got to be the worst. Call the World Series trophy. What do you call it? A hunk of metal or something there last year, the year before. I love the reverse boycott. I mean, I love when unique things happen in sports, and what's more unique than the worst team in baseball? It's been one of the historical worst teams over the past how many years, decades, have a crowd that's into it, and then they go on a 7-game win streak, and the crowd's like living and dying with every pitch, and then celebrating after they won, like they just won the World Series as the worst team in baseball. Very unique atmosphere. I loved it. Obviously, it's not going to be enough to keep them in Oakland, but it was fun.
The other quote that you speak of, I think, is on the relocation quote. The real question is, what is it Oakland was prepared to do? There is no Oakland offer. Okay. They never got to a point where they had a plan to build a stadium at any site. And it's not just John Fisher. The community has to provide support.
Right.
There were like a million Oakland stadium plans. They all looked cool. They were like waterfront. They were trying to rebuild neighborhoods. It looked like the stadium in Tampa that's never going to get made. I looked at every single one of them and I went, that's a great rendering. And did they ever even come close? No.
I think this term's overused on the internet nowadays, but he's gaslighting us. He's just saying things that factually aren't true.
Doing the little polite applause going, thank you for cutely showing up to a game. He is gaslighting us. Obviously, a burner, I did not see the Oakland government quote, but I welcome it if you I trust you to send it to me by EOD. I'd love to look at it. Let's talk one more imploding team before we sign off. Because I did want to talk a little bit about Steve Cohen saying he wouldn't blow up the Mets. But then again, the Mets won last night, embarrassed the Yankees, and the Mets still look quite bad and undisciplined, but they can take a victory lap for yesterday and today. They're having a good time. I don't think it's quite time to address that yet, although Verlander and Scherzer, not what they paid them to do. Let's talk about the Cardinals, just because we are getting to the point in St. Louis where they rebounded briefly, and we were all talking about how they're not that far out of the Central. Now they're the worst team. They're close to being the worst team in Major League Baseball. The winning percentage of the state of Missouri with St. Louis and the Royals, the A's briefly edged past the Royals with their 7-game winning streak. Two bad teams. And it's getting to the point where Will Leitch wrote on MLB.com about how Jordan Walker is the first baseman of the future, and it's time to trade Paul Goldschmidt. I've also seen trade Nolan Arenado takes, considering he opted into that cheap deal this offseason. 5 years, $89 million for Nolan Arenado. Maybe it gets to that point too. I know back in the day, people always said he dreamed of being a Dodger, but trade Goldie is a lot more of an immediate potential response. And when I'm seeing people on MLB.com write about sending him to the Angels, the Giants, the Phillies without Rhys Hoskins, that definitely begins to pique my interest. Are any of those potential Goldschmidt trades triggering anything for you?
I think a trade to the Angels would be interesting, because if the Angels want any chance of keeping Ohtani and not having him go to LA, obviously he's already in LA, or the Dodgers or someone else, they need to go all in and kind of go on a little bit of a run here to give Ohtani in. And still, even if they do that, it might not be enough. So the Angels have actually been half decent this year. Why don't you have a team? You have Ohtani. Why don't you just go all in, try to get Goldschmidt, try to go on a run, and just see what happens? You might as well, because if you don't and you stink and you miss the playoffs, Ohtani's gone.
And right now, the Angels' first base situation is dark.
I don't even know who it is. Who's
Brandon Drury plays a little bit there. Gio Urshela plays a little bit there. Jared Walsh came back from battling anxiety and a wild, he had like some form of vertigo, and he came back and is 6 for 56. This is a recent all-star who has now lost his way due to awful things beyond his control, like post-concussive symptoms. Paul Goldschmidt looks pretty good in a halo.
Love it. Let's get it done.
I'm all in. That is it for this edition of the Baseball Insiders. Ian, I so greatly appreciate you working with me over the last couple weeks. Obviously, Burner dropped us the A's quote from the Oakland mayor's office, and so I will leave you with this because there's nothing better than reacting to your least favorite commissioner, Rob Manfred, to send you off. Quote on Manfred's statement: "This is just totally false. There was a very concrete proposal under discussion, and Oakland had gone above and beyond to clear hurdles, including securing funding for infrastructure, providing environmental review, and working with other agencies to finalize approvals. The reality is the A's ownership had insisted on a multi-billion-dollar, 55-acre project that included a ballpark, residential, commercial, retail space in Las Vegas. For whatever reason, they seem satisfied with a 9-acre leased ballpark on leased land. If they propose a similar project in Oakland, we feel confident a new ballpark would already be under construction. Oakland showed its commitment to the A's, and that is why the A's belong in Oakland. Those are the facts." Woof, Rob.
Tough
to hear the whole thing. Ian, I so appreciate you joining us for the last week and a half. Great run of shows, and thank you for taking extra caution to somehow find a space to record in the fan-sided office, which is populated by absolute wild animals.
Thank you for having me, Adam. It's been a fun few shows. I'm glad we were able to make it through the chaos on the show today. I'll be back next week with Peter on, I want to say Tuesday. Astros, Dodgers, late next week, maybe Thursday, Friday. Anyways, I'll to talk some more betting. Thank you for having me on. Thursday, it'll be myself and Peter Dewey talking Dodgers, Astros, I think it is. So keep an eye out for that, Adam, and I'll gladly join you any other time in the future.
Perfect. Well, thank you, man. Yeah, so we'll see Ian Thursday on the betting show. Robert and I will be back live on Tuesday, same time, 3:30 Eastern, typical. And then we'll be running an interview on Thursday as well. So you watch the live betting show on Thursday with Ian and Peter. Robert and I will be running an interview with a major league ball player who may or may not wear a burgundy bee on his hat. I will try to be cool for the duration of the podcast. So we'll see you then. I will be, while that is airing, I will be sitting at AT&T Oracle Park watching the Padres and San Francisco Giants face off. So if the interview goes well, ping me, let me know if it's good. If you hate it, I will be reading my mentions from a plate of garlic fries. Until next week, thanks, Ian, so much, man. And we'll both see you on Thursday, and we'll be back here on Tuesday.